What's up, everybody? We are Cinematics, and we are here with another episode today discussing what our favorite beginning, middle, and end is. Our favorite trilogies of all time. Specifically, each one of our favorite trilogy. We are going to be defending and discussing what we think is the best trilogy ever made and telling us why you think that, and then we'll have you guys decide at the end who the winner might be. So, yes, we are looking at what our favorite trilogies are, but then we're also trying to defend what we think does the best job at being a trilogy. And a trilogy really is, in a sense...
Third act. Three-act structure.
Three-act structure.
Three-act structure.
Like, I mean, any good story should be, and it's spread out between these three movies. Maybe the best way to do a movie trilogy story, in a sense.
Yeah, it's true.
Unless you can have one solid, great film. So... We're going to be working our way through everybody, starting with Justin, telling us what his favorite trilogy is.
No pressure.
And why.
Very unfortunate that I have to go first again, but I'm down.
I beg to differ.
I also realized that the fan is still on, so I'm just going to shut it off really quick.
There it is.
We ain't editing that.
We are not editing that out. That's just part of real life.
It happens.
All right, so unfortunately the randomizer picked me to go first, but I think I'm going to win.
Ooh.
Because strong in this one.
Because
I wonder why.
I am defending the best trilogy ever made, never will be topped, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
That's all I'm going to say.
Why the hell
On to you, John. No.
I should have known. What in the heck, bro?
Yeah.
You did not get
What
what Justin's favorite film trilogy was going to be, but it is a very
All right.
Justin
Yeah.
trilogy.
Okay, so let's just go back about
Let's wind
18
the-
years.
Let's wind the clock back a
Yeah.
year ago.
About 18 years back, I watched Lord of the Rings with my sister many times. Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, all the theatrical cuts. And I love them since I was little, so I've seen them quite a bit of times. Seen Fellowship probably the most, Return of the King second, Two Towers the least, but I've seen them all very much. It's really hard to try and talk about this in 10 to 15 minutes because we don't want this episode to be, a full day's length. But I'm just going to go through all these quick points I put down of thoughts that I have about this trilogy and why I think it's the best. The story is epic. It's probably one of the most epic stories I've ever got to see on the theater, or not on the theater, on the screen. The world is so massive, yet you understand every aspect of it. It's never too big for our little minds. BVS reference. And it's so rich. Every place you visit in the movie, you feel like it's this whole grand sequence, and it's just amazing. I mean, the direction from Peter Jackson and the cinematography is just so well done. The characters, so many characters, probably the most I don't know. There's a lot of characters in what I know Sam's gonna pick, but for what it is, the characters in these three films in the trilogy are so well done, explored to their max potential in the given time, which they are long films, and the extended editions are even longer, but everything that's explored with them needed to be done. Nothing's left out. Nothing is in there that doesn't need to be. I know some people might say that the films are slow at some parts, or some stuff doesn't need to be there, but I would say you're wrong, because in every single film there needs to be a low and there needs to be a high, and this is the perfect example of that. I mean, there's some slow sequences that have character development, that have storytelling, exposition, and there's some sequences that are very action-packed and just so many characters thrown on screen, but you need that checks and balance,
For all three, and it's definitely an epic.
Yeah, especially when it gets to Return of the King.
Epic trilogy. I will agree with that.
I mean, the theatrical versions I think add up to about 9 maybe 9.5 hours, and the extended cuts, which I still need to see, Two Towers and Return of the King, that's probably like 12 plus hours. That's another point. The theatrical cuts, I remember talking to you one day, those are probably some of the best cut down versions from a director's / extended versions that we've ever seen. Because those, if I didn't know that extended versions existed, I would think this is what Peter Jackson wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which in a sense it is, but
It is, yeah.
you still have that extended version, which Fellowship of the Rings extended version is so good.
It is, yeah.
And I can't really pick between which one I like better. They're both good.
It's definitely not needed, but the fact that you have it and it really helps expand it. I mean, the extra footage, I think it helps, it adds a lot to it.
Yeah.
Theatrical and extended are both great.
I put in a point just to mildly piss you guys off.
Oh yeah.
I said, while other trilogies may have strong characters, the Lord of the Rings combination of characters, world building, and storytelling make it stand out as the best. Which I know the trilogies you guys are going to mention have the same as well.
Explain that a little bit more. Then.
So, all right. So this is adapted from books.
Yes.
I wish I wasn't going first because I wanted to reference what you guys are talking about. But the fact that this is such, if you just take the books away and you just look at this as a trilogy, what I know I'm going to be debating against with your pick and your pick, it's the most tight version of what we could possibly get from the characters on the screen, from the action that's involved in the film, from the world that's involved in the film. Because like when you look at, I can't reference it, but like once we get to the end of the episode, I'll probably come back to it. But like it's man, dude, I can't freaking I can't do it without mentioning your guys.
I don't know what do you.
It's
Just do it.
You want to just say it really quick?
What our entries are going to be?
Yeah.
All right, John.
Well, mine is my best trilogy is going to be The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
And my best trilogy is going to be. Oh, it loses all the. You know what? It had to be here anyway. The original Star Wars trilogy.
There we go. All right. So, having mentioned those two, you have Batman and you have Star Wars. Two of the most iconic things that you could ever think about when it comes to cinema, characters, whatever. Then you have Lord of the Rings. You don't really, when you hear Lord of the Rings, you think the original trilogy. When you hear Star Wars, you can think quite a bit of things. You can think the prequels, you can think the originals, you can think the sequels.
Very true.
Anime shows like Visions, you can think games. Batman, same thing. Games, Dark Knight trilogy, Keaton, Affleck, Pattinson, Clooney, animated films, animated series, so many different things. Lord of the Rings, yeah, you have the Hobbit trilogy, you have the new Rings of Power show, which they're both pretty good. But the real thing that you think about is all the original characters: Frodo, Aragorn, Bilbo, Gandalf, Saruman, everything from the original trilogy that people hold as god tier level cinema, which it is. So that's the point I wanted to make with that line. And on top of that, they were shot back to back. They had this planned.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that has an advantage versus Dark Knight trilogy and Star Wars original. I mean, you had Lucas working on Star Wars. He was unsure if it was going to be good, which it was, but he was unsure. You had Nolan confident in Begins, I guarantee. Yes. But you could see at the end of Begins, he left that calling card there. It was like, if people like this, we'll do a sequel. Sequel turns out to be the best film ever made. Yes. But the point I'm trying to make is they had this all planned. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, film 1, 2, and 3. It's the most sequential trilogy I've ever watched. And I think that in and of itself just makes the point that it is the best trilogy because it was the one that was planned the most. And to have each film being hard to pick which one is the best. When you look at the Dark Knight trilogy, most people immediately say Dark Knight. When you look at Star Wars, most people say Empire. Dark Knight Rises and Return of the Jedi liked a little bit less, especially Rises. When you look at The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship is a great film. Two Towers gets passed over because it's the one in the middle. Return of the King, one of the most epic films you've ever seen. My favorite, and a lot of people's favorites because of how epic it concludes the story. Yeah, I mean,
there with the planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And I mean, obviously it's not something that can be done that often in Hollywood because they need to see proof of what you can do in order to make sequels. But the fact that Peter Jackson had the balls to do that and execute like exponentially well is just like a testament to his directing capability, but a testament to how well of a storyteller he is. The score by Howard Shore. Amazing. There's not much else to say. I don't think anyone could have done it better. There's so many. I saw a fact. He composed over 100 hours of music for the Lord of the Rings films. Just the Lord of the Rings films.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Wow.
And only 9 hours of that was used. Like, I mean, the dude like loved his craft, and it shows. When I mean, there's so many different themes. The terrifying Nazgul theme.
It's amazing.
The Shire theme. I think one of the things I said was like the score itself does a great job of blending happy campiness with dark like terror at the same time.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like just blends seamlessly. I don't know how the heck he did it.
No,
But
I mean, yeah.
He comes from a horror background too, so like it works.
that's true.
That's why I think that's why Jackson wanted Shore to compose the films, because he comes from a horror background with The Fly, Silence of the Lambs. He did
The Fly. Wow.
But he did that in Silence. I mean,
That's
epic horror soundtracks, and then he does this. And he does Lord of the Rings, and it's epic and beautiful, but also tragic and scary.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is a fantastic soundtrack.
Going on to more detailed aspects, practical effects and CGI. I mean, everyone knows practical was used a crap ton in those movies. I mean, the little bits of CGI still look good. And it holds up to this day, to the point where when you look at that film as a whole, or those films as a whole, it looks better than some of the films that come out today. And that was early 2000s.
Yeah, the first film came out in 2002.
Yeah.
2002, dude.
Wow.
Or,
Yeah.
or maybe 2001.
I mean, it's
2001 or 2002.
Not 3.
No.
Too late.
Yeah, if we're going to fact check that, actually.
2001.
2001, dude.
So it
Yes,
was
and I can't
2001, 2, and 3. That was
Really?
A testament.
Wow.
It's a testament right there.
yeah. So yeah, that says it all. That's over 2 decades ago, and it still looks just as good today.
Yeah, it's true.
The characters / the character development. There are a lot of characters in here that are memorable. Frodo, Samwise, Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas. I could keep going on, but every single one starts out in their place, especially Frodo being this nobody. And by the end of the trilogy, you see him carrying the weight of the entire world. And he's just a little tiny hobbit who had no care in the world. He was just living his life. Ends up saving all of humanity by the end of that movie. And Samwise too. I feel like Samwise gets kind of pushed to the side because Frodo's the one carrying it, but he went through just as much.
Spoiler alerts for all these movies. Like,
Yeah.
If you haven't seen them, I mean, well, he carries him.
Yeah, he literally carries him.
Literally, yeah.
Like it's insane. I mean, there's almost too much to talk about when it comes to Lord of the Rings. All these tiny little details, and it's just so good. I mean, Aragorn starting out in the first movie as just this random dude in the shadows, like no one knows who he is, and then by the end he's the rightful king. Like Boromir being this guy who's just seduced by power, and at the end of the first film, I mean, we already have spoilers, he dies, which is an iconic sequence.
Yeah.
Very sad. he ends up with Aragorn. He like makes up in that last sequence, and it's just those tiny little things that set this apart from most trilogies. That they just, I don't know. It's just a lot of trilogies just want to make money, and this one you could tell he loved the story, the original books, and he just wanted to make something amazing. I already talked about visuals, I already talked about acting, pacing, kind of already talked about it's done the way it should have been. Like I said, there's slow pieces and there's fast sequences, and even the opening of the first film, Fellowship, what gives you that whole montage sequence, like it gives you what you need to know, and then like they probably didn't even know that they were going to make Rings of Power, but Rings of Power is great and it kind of explores that. But like all those little things where it just feels like everything was done, crafted to perfection. I say all 3 films are perfect. I can't talk bad about any of them. My favorite is Return of the King, just because how epic it is, even though there's 15 different endings.
Oh, I know.
But the payoff, like, I mean, you just start off in this place. When I first watched it, I was like, what's going to happen? By the end of that first watch of all 3 films, you're like, wow, I just experienced something that I will probably never experience again.
You do feel that when you finish Return of the King.
Yeah, like I remember the first time I think we showed you stuff, you were like, wow, this is a great freaking story.
Yep.
And it's just beginning, middle, end, but normally it's beginning, middle, end in one movie. This is like beginning, first film, middle, second film, third film is the end.
And it does feel that way with the first movie. When it ends, you feel like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's act 1, 2, and 3 in each film. And by the end of Fellowship, it's like this weird musical cue where it's happy, but there's also like doom impending. And then you start the second film and you're like, oh, this is maybe not so bad. But in the second film, you're like, oh, shoot, what's going to happen? And then the third film happens, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I would do that.
And then the spider comes in, and I die.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me, I wanted to, for the sake of Lord of the Rings, since it's classic, I wanted to go through some fun facts, or maybe some lesser known facts that most people don't know about. It was one of the most expensive film productions ever made. Obviously that has changed since then, but it was $281 million at the time, which early 2000s, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
I think shortly after that, Pirates was one of the more expensive ones, if I'm not mistaken. Pirates 3. I think that was
expensive movie at the time.
280 around there or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know this. Film's director Peter Jackson made a cameo in each film,
Yeah.
which I need to rewatch now. 3 hours each just to see when that happens.
You can see in Two Towers. You can see him in Two Towers as one of the soldiers.
Did you know this? Sean Connery was originally offered the role of Gandalf.
Wow.
That's
I can see
crazy.
why. I can see why.
And then
that would be phenomenal, but
he turned it down, probably because he didn't think it was going to be anything great, and Ian McKellen got it.
I'm glad that went to Ian McKellen.
I also agree with that too. Yeah. I don't see anybody else playing Gandalf.
No, absolutely not.
Another testament to how great this trilogy is. It won 17 Academy Awards, including Best Picture for Return of the King.
Yeah.
I mean,
That one, that did.
Yeah, it won
that's
Best Picture.
wild.
That's
For a semi blockbuster.
I
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, for a blockbuster. Fantasy, but yeah.
I'm not shunning your guys' picks because I love both of them, but can you say the same?
Oh,
That's all. Wow. That's
wow.
all I can say.
That was a mic drop.
Wow.
Just
I would drop my mic if it wasn't attached to my arm. And then a couple more things, you know, the meme that everyone who loves Lord of the Rings, when they're showing someone who hasn't seen it, you know, Viggo Mortensen broke his toe when he kicked the helmet. That actually happened in the scene, similar to when Leonardo DiCaprio actually cut himself in Django.
Yeah.
This was kind of fun. The cast and crew had a tradition of having a last supper after each movie wrapped. For Return of the King, they had a traditional Maori feast to honor the New Zealand culture. It's just, I mean, it's
That's
just a
cool.
bunch of interesting things that happen on this set that you can feel like everyone was like almost like a family. They loved what they were doing. And then Howard Shore, he won three Academy Awards for his work on the trilogy, which I didn't even know about.
Rightfully so.
I mean, like that's insane. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, I'm trying to keep this short, concise. The cast, the cast in general is stacked. I mean, now it's stacked. I don't really know if they were that famous back then, but like when I think about Viggo Mortensen being Aragorn, Ian McKellen, Hugo Weaving, like freaking
Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Like, geez, I feel like a lot of them probably got famous because of Lord of the Rings, but like it's just looking back now that was a solid freaking cast, perfect picks for everyone. And then
What's his Samwise actor?
Sean Astin.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then
Rudy.
Goonies, man.
Yeah.
even like going back to the CGI thing or motion tracking, Andy Serkis as as Smeagol
huge.
Gollum, like that is
Revolutionized.
way ahead of its time. Looks better than a lot of the CGI or whatever they're trying to do nowadays. Like it's,
I would agree.
When did
I would
Return of the
agree.
King come out?
I think it was 2003.
3? Okay.
That's crazy, dude.
One after another.
That's
after
crazy.
another. Man, so then he hopped. Both of them went right to work on King Kong. Then
Yeah,
Yeah.
2003.
Mm-hmm. Which is phenomenal as well.
absolutely.
It's such a good film, man.
Underrated.
King Kong 2005 remake. Oh, so great.
So that, I mean, that's just a little bit as to why I think Lord of the Rings is the best. One last fun fact, which I thought was interesting because I'm deathly afraid of the Nazgul whenever they show up on screen. Turns out,
This is accurate.
I don't even know if you know this, but in the scene where the hobbits are hiding from the Nazgul in the stable, one of the horses accidentally stepped on a carrot, causing it to squeak. The sound was left in the film and it became the trademark sound effect for the Nazgul.
That's
Are you
crazy.
for
Which
real?
that's the thing that freaks me out is the
That-
squeal.
I did not know that. That is crazy.
It's like
That screech is ungodly,
terrifying.
dude. That is crazy.
yeah.
A freaking carrot?
So
Okay.
all that to say, Lord of the Rings is the best trilogy. I'd like to see you guys try and beat that.
Oh, this dude has confidence.
Yeah, I love
beyond
it.
Belief right now.
Now
I mean that. All right.
that's great. No, I mean that was
That was
points hard to argue as well. I mean it is obviously an incredible trilogy. I will say the only unfortunate thing with John's is, John, do you want to say what you will be in defense of? The name of the trilogy?
I mean, I'll be doing the. I'm doing the Dark Knight trilogy. for
Dark Knight
sure.
trilogy
Yes.
is the fact that I love the Dark Knight trilogy.
I mean, make no mistake.
I will be almost rooting for you
Right,
in this
right.
scenario with you're representing my favorite origin film. You're
Yep.
representing almost 100% my favorite movie of all time.
Mm-hmm. Which is Dark.
Make
Dark
no
Knight.
mistake. I love the Dark Knight trilogy.
Right.
But when we discussed the best beginning, middle, end, that's when I shifted my view towards Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
because each film alone, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Dark Knight trilogy, first two films, pretty much 10 out of 10. Last one, a little bit less. Star Wars, first two films, pretty much 10 out of 10. Last one, tiny bit less besides Lando clapping.
Nice.
John, that you have the stage.
All right.
Defend the Dark Knight.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. No. Episode 4. No, I'll scratch that. You don't. Yeah. Transition into the thing. Anyways, we'll go like that. All right, guys. So, my pick for the best trilogy is The Dark Knight. We all know that we love Batman.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the
And that's the problem. Exactly, that's the problem. And we've had tons of Batman films, tons of different interpretations of Batman. But what film or what trilogy stayed the most consistent with the character and told an origin story and had a 3-act structure with said origin story. That is the Dark Knight trilogy, starting with Batman Begins. Okay? There was over 4 Batman films that just didn't get the character fully right. There were moments in the first 2 Keaton films. There were moments in the Kilmer film with Batman Forever. I would even say, too, there were moments in Clooney's film with Batman and Robin that had some stuff. But it was Batman Begins, directed by Christopher Nolan, that really paved the way. And the films, starting with Batman Begins, were finally about the character Batman, and then having other supporting characters and villains that helped support Batman. But it was about Batman finally.
Absolutely.
And his origin. It focuses on the duality and the struggle of one man trying to create a difference in his city. And you see that consistently in all 3 films.
I like that cockiness, man. It's like, enough said.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, not enough stuff for me, man. But on top of that, too, these films, I think, are very important in the pop culture media. It revolutionized the origin story, and formatted that gritty take on a concept. When people always say, "Oh no, it's gritty this, gritty that," I'm of the mindset where I don't really like when somebody saying, "Oh, it's gritty this, it's gritty that," just because it's been overdone. But the Dark Knight trilogy is what really brought that into the pop culture. And what I love about these 3 films is that there was talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. Behind, you have Christopher Nolan, who was a gamble to Warner Brothers, and he only made a couple films, some great films, but like, did he really have what it takes to make a Batman film or a high-end commercial blockbuster?
Because
in hindsight, who knows? But now, hell yes. Especially now with all these other films too, like blockbuster after blockbuster after success. I cannot wait for Oppenheimer. So, and then you have, David S. Goyer and even Jonathan Nolan just helping him write and create these awesome scripts, these awesome stories with the characters. And then you have, director of photography, Wally Pfister, really solidifying the look for all 3 films, which sometimes is tried to be emulated, not always successfully. Like those 3 films had a look and a feel that I think is unmatched. But then then talent in front of camera, Christian Bale, and of course the legendary Heath Ledger as the Joker. People I feel like don't give Christian Bale enough recognition. Absolutely. I mean, he is, for right now, the most consistent Batman.
yeah,
Granted, Pattinson came in, but we need more. We need more with Pattinson. We need the other 2 films, because it's gonna be a trilogy, to see how that stacks. But Bale, to this day, still is the most consistent Batman. Animated series, you bring that in, okay, there's a debate. But I'm talking about right now as live action. Christian Bale is the most consistent, and consistent with the character that has been around for 70 years.
Absolutely.
And it's just so good, man. Not to mention too, with the grittiness and the realism, it brought Batman into a believable reality, a heightened reality. But that's how Chris Nolan views his films, that audiences could buy. Because for a long time, with all these films, not only the Batman films but also other superhero films, it was a lot of fantastical elements, and I think that Nolan and company needed to bring Batman into a plausible and realistic reality to at least make it accessible and acceptable to audiences.
Absolutely.
I think they needed to because of the Batman and Robin debacle and whatnot, and tons of other superhero films that were just kind of plummeting. I think they needed to do a different approach, and that approach was very successful. For all three films, it really showed everyone what love, care, and dedication towards a character could look like over the span of 3 films. Make no mistake, those 3 films are about Batman.
Absolutely.
And yes, Heath Ledger's Joker does take center stage a heck of a lot in The Dark Knight. But at least with this, it's still Batman's struggle of what to do. Because with Keaton's Batman from 1989, with Jack Nicholson's Joker, it really did feel like Jack Nicholson's film. At least with The Dark Knight, yes, it's a lot of Ledger's film, but Bale's performance as Bruce, it's still there. The struggle. What do I do? How can I protect my city when it's all going to shit? It's phenomenal. This trilogy is definitely the best because it shows Batman in his early beginnings, starting with Batman Begins, the trials and tribulations he faces in the years dedicated to his one-man war on crime, and ultimately the conclusive finish to his story that is cohesive and that is planned. In my opinion, this trilogy has become iconic and will always be remembered as one of the most, if not the most, important stories brought to life in a 3-act film structure. And that's all I'll say.
We just put that on a mantle. That ending right there, because that is what the world needs to hear about the Dark Knight trilogy.
I'm a little bit scared right now. But since I do love the Dark Knight trilogy so much, I'm going to mention one thing you did forget.
Oh?
The music.
That's very, very true. Hans Zimmer's music, phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
Not as great as Danny Elfman's Batman theme, but overall very iconic. And yes.
Whoa.
Well, no, absolutely.
That is news to me. I thought.
What?
Well, I knew you like Elfman, but I thought
That's Batman's theme.
Oh, son.
No,
I thought you were still teetering on like.
No. We make no mistake, man.
Wait. So
Elfman's
do you like
theme is
Elfman's
Batman's theme?
Elfman's theme versus Shirley Walker?
Okay, no, Shirley Walker for sure, but Shirley Walker's wouldn't have been if it wasn't for 89. But Shirley Walker's Batman theme in the animated series is definitely my go-to, especially for Mask of the Phantasms. But if we're going for what helped bring that, a live action, but what helped spring up the animated series, it was 1989's Batman and Batman Returns with Danny Elfman's music. Man. That is the definitive Batman theme.
Okay.
Hans Zimmer's music is amazing. Make no mistake, it's phenomenal, and it's epic. But you can't really hum, or you don't really think sometimes of, unless you're really like diehard like us that really can listen to that sound to all 3 soundtracks like crazy and listen to soundtracks. When you think of Batman, you hear Elfman's theme, you know immediately.
I mean, I think we could hum almost every Batman.
I know. That's a great theme. I mean, The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
The great thing about the character as a whole is every single score that's been done for Batman has been great.
Yes. I would agree. Yeah.
Even the crap films have been great. So that's
no, I love Joel Schumacher. I love Elliot Goldenthal's music for Forever, and even Batman and Robin because it's used again. I love it, and I love Elliot Goldenthal's reasoning for the Batman theme. Bum 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 bum. He said that. What do kids do when they're playing with toys, and like they create their own themes and everything. So I'm thinking as a kid, it's like bum, 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 bum. And it's like, that's awesome. And I quite enjoy it. I think it's an underrated theme. It's not 89's theme, nor is it even Chris Nolan's theme, or even Robert Pattinson's theme, or even the animated series' theme. But I still love it, honestly.
If you take out the cry, and I'm not even saying this ironically, I'm saying this like, if you take out the cry of Batman,
Oh yeah.
in 66, and you just have that. That feels like it's in a spy thriller. That's awesome.
I
That's-
agree.
I mean, it's very 60s,
Yes.
but for something that's very 60s, it's a great theme.
Yeah.
I agree. Completely.
Classic.
yeah.
Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb.
But yeah.
All right, that was good. But
You know, we all.
we'll see what you guys think. But it's kind of tough right now. I don't know who's winning right now.
I couldn't tell you.
But we'll see if Sam completely blows us out of the water like he did with the last episode we had.
Here's the thing.
Go for it.
Your trilogy, both of your trilogies, groundbreaking. Nobody can argue that they are two of the best trilogies ever made. I would say the two best trilogies behind my trilogy.
Very nice. Very nice.
Because what your trilogy did what no other really could, which was take an already, for generations, successful book series and translate it beautifully to cinema. And it did that. And it did it perfectly. And it was groundbreaking. Groundbreaking in the world of film. Changed film, really, in reality, with what it did with even motion capture. Mm-hmm. How epic and how long we can really go for these trilogies.
Yeah.
That changed film. Your film trilogy took a character who had been beloved for longer than even Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I believe Lord of the Rings came out in the 1950s, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could
The novels. Batman comes out in 1939. This proves to be the most successful adaptation in the world of live action of the character. Yeah. This changes comic book films forever. Mm. This makes them serious cinema. This produces a film that can be called the greatest of all time that's based off a comic book, changing the world of comics. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I can say about my film trilogy is while yours could change the world of literature and cinema, yours could change comic books and cinema, mine changed the world. And that is the Star Wars trilogy. You walk in here with a story that is not from anything, not a comic book, not a book. This is an original idea from a nerdy kid studying anthropology named George Lucas. And what does he do? He takes elements from classic film stories. He takes elements from religion. He takes elements from just the narrative of the human life and combines it all into this epic space opera fantasy that is told through the eyes of a wishful farm boy, bleeding out the entire story of the human spirit in the greatest story ever told, completely original, just based off of everything in life. We have the most classic story of good and evil ever put to, maybe ever written, in my opinion, because it is just so, this is what it is.
Yeah, it's cut and dry.
Cut and dry, dark, light, good, bad, blue, red lightsabers. That's what you had in these ones. Yeah, you get green in the last, but it was simple. This was a meta-narrative of the story of the human condition and of life and of spirituality, all told through the simple eyes of space. But it was only put to cinema. Yeah, we had a novel from it, but this was truly a story for the theaters. This was truly a story that pulled back from old serials for true film lovers. And it changed the world of cinema from taking us out of the grittiness of the 1970s to an era of hope again, to an era where films can have true morale. It took us out of...
That's a great point.
It changed the world of special effects in film more drastically than ever before. I mean, it founded... what are we talking about? There you go. Absolutely. What you see on everything after this. This ragtag team of workers came in and said, we are going to change everything, and didn't even know if it was going to be successful.
Yeah.
We're taking influence from samurai. We're taking influence from medieval stories, and it's all tied into this incredible story with the greatest characters ever. Starting, we'll just talk about our three leads. We start with Luke We start with Luke Skywalker, who, not having the prequels, not having anything else, just this story, is the most classic archetype of a hero. He is a character who doesn't feel like he belongs where he is. He's dreaming of something else. This is the hero's journey wrapped into a character. And people will always describe the original Star Wars, obviously George Lucas wanting to use Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but it goes through the whole original trilogy. We start with him wanting to know who he even is in the first place. Starts off, enters this world of excitement, little naive to it all, meets new friends along the way, and then we get to that second episode, and he doesn't just get trials, he has his hand cut off. He goes through it, and he's just trying to figure out what to do. He's battling his own internal demons, viewing himself as Vader, what he can become. This is a story of growing up. This is a story of maturity. This is a story of somebody who wants to know who he is, and then he finally discovers that in the place with his father at the end of the third film, in the family line, where he never knew that that's where he was going to end up, but it all wraps back up into family, who he didn't even know in the first movie. You have your dude antagonist of Han Solo, who is space pirate, perfect arc. And you can't have two perfect arcs in a story like that, but you do. Han Solo is a space pirate, doesn't care about anybody. Follow that arc through the whole way, but then, as it turns out, he has a heart of gold. Yes, is it cliche? Absolutely. Good. I'm glad it's cliche, because it's a representation of these type of characters, and it's something everyone can relate to, always. You always have your outsider who doesn't know if this is where he wants to be, if this is where he belongs, doesn't even know how necessarily to relate. But then, when you're in a dire situation like that, you can say, I know. You can say something along those lines. You have Princess Leia, who is just thrown into this whole world, not knowing who she is, similar steps, finds love along the way, proves to be one of the most important female characters in the 1970s, and she's over here kicking ass, saving the two male characters, like changing that world. You have the greatest villain put to screen, Darth Vader, literally looks like the representation of just evil, but then all of a sudden it flips, and then we get a new story arc that no one could ever imagine that you would get from the villain of your first movie. He was just the bad guy. Now he's the father. Now he's having this heartfelt moment at the end of this trilogy with your hero. You didn't see that coming years before. And you have a redemption arc for him that we didn't even know was going to spawn. We didn't even know that he was the main character of this whole story. We thought he was the bad guy. And then you have just the most iconic cast of additional characters. You have quite literally Gandalf in a sense, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But Gandalf done before Gandalf was done on film. You have C-3PO and R2-D2, just like a Timon and Pumbaa type side characters for comedic relief, but also to get us to these narrative points. And then Lando Calrissian, Chewbacca, Emperor Palpatine, Boba Fett. I mean, you're talking about the most iconic gallery of characters. You can't look at a Time magazine without seeing Star Wars on the front cover. It's impossible, because this film trilogy is not just grafted into film, it's grafted into the world, and it relates so well because it's the story about the world and about the human condition, and it's completely original from the genius mind of George Lucas. I could say more, but that's all I got for now.
I hate debating with Sam.
Ladies and gentlemen, that right there was phenomenal. It has made me want to rewatch the OG Star Wars films again, like as soon as possible.
Actually, same. I want to rewatch all these trilogies again.
So I think
literally,
I think the next time we do a debate, Sam has to pick the weakest option ever, so we can have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I know.
And
right?
also why I hate going first, because then Sam hears both our perspectives, and he's just like, "This is why you're wrong. This is why you're wrong. This is why I'm right."
In all reality, though, I don't think we can pick a winner today because we all have valid points, and all three of these film trilogies you could put in the place of potentially being the best. So we won't decide who the winner is, but we will let you decide who the winner is. Please comment below what you think was maybe described as the best and what you just honestly think is the best trilogy of them all, or what you're, if it's none of these options. Yeah, they were pointing to themselves, weren't they? But guys, you have anything you'd like to close with?
No, man, it's just all three great trilogies. If you haven't seen them, which if you haven't, what in the world are you doing? But if so, watch them. And if you have seen these and it's been a while, watch them as well.
Yeah, I know. I mean, every single one we've mentioned still has some form of show or movie going on today, which is just shows how impactful they've been.
Absolutely.
So that's a great point.
Just a last point. I don't know if I won, but you know,
I don't know if I won either.
I'm kind of sad, but it's okay because I love
up
all
for
three.
them.
I love all three of these trilogies. That's the great part.
Absolutely.
Like, so
True.
And that is why we are Cinematics.
yeah.
And with that, we say thank you for watching Cinematics, and we'll see you guys next time.